Alison, we talked about the fact that technology is not just being a programmer. There are many different roles in technology that can cater for those who are not experienced in programming or heavy coding. How does PM role differ from other positions in technology? What makes it unique?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, having dabbled in all of these other past career pivots in life, I would say that product management is unique because you have to understand the entire kind of journey of the customer. And depending on what domain in your job as a product manager you're focusing on, you may need to get really deep or you may need to stay really broad and know a little bit about everything. What I like is that my job is understanding the technology at a high level, which is something you can acquire in the role. And from there, I make the decision of what the customer journey should be to solve that specific problem that I'm working toward. So I don't have to be really technical. I don't have to get in the weeds. That's what the engineers' jobs are for. I'm more about what kind of value are we trying to create that's in alignment with our business goals. I also get to be creative because I get to think of solutions and I have to think holistically about everything that's going on and how that's going to impact everybody else's role in the company. Whereas maybe if you're an engineer, you have a very specific task in front of you that you have to solve. In most cases, it's not your job to think of how all of that is going to impact everybody else around you. So in other roles that I had when I was a developer, I was like, build this, get it done, move on to the next task. Build the next thing, move on to the next task. When I was acting as an operations person, I had a very specific goal where I also did everything, but it wasn't really focused on solving customer value. It was kind of focused on how can we create the best strategy for what we're trying to do. How can we manage this team that we have to make sure everybody's in sync, everything's being communicated? And so with product management, you get to dabble in all of those things. And that's what makes me really excited about being in this role.
Let's go back to these baby steps you took. So you decided to go to PM, but really the question is, how do you break through the chain? Well, you can't get a job because you don't have experience, and you don't have experience because you can't get a job.
So what I usually did when I was trying to test out different careers in technology was I would try and see how I could structure my resume to reflect the job descriptions. And I think this is applicable to any job that you want to apply for. You want to make it look like you know what you're doing, because you do know what you're doing, but it's just a matter of how you structure it for the reader. And with product management, I identified the core skill sets that I felt would help me stand out and thrive in this career at the companies that I wanted to work for. And so I made sure that I highlighted that in my resume. Beyond this, I wanted to see where my gaps were. I knew I had to learn how to identify appropriate success metrics. I needed to learn how to give better presentation skills, for example. I'm just spitballing right now of like some ideas that I have on the spot. But once you can identify these gaps in your resume, then just take baby steps, go on YouTube and find somebody who's teaching this specific skill set. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like how to identify success metrics as a product manager, but maybe just like, how do you identify success metrics? What are those even? And be able to speak to those at a high level. When you apply for a job, it's also really important to know that the majority of those skills can be learned at the company. So for example, the company I work for now is a cloud company. At the time, I didn't know anything about the cloud, but I had a background that would help me ensure I can do my job appropriately and successfully. And so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that in my interviews, and also wanted to highlight that in this role, you have to be really curious. You have to be willing to follow the breadcrumbs. You have to be able to work with people and like working with people because you're on meetings all the time, and you have to be able to communicate effectively. So if you can learn how to do this, it's really important that you showcase that. I would say that it's really important that you're passionate about the job and that you're able to share that with the team that you're interviewing with.